Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanadi. Today I am back after only a short break with another installment in my Releases Revisited series. This is when I look back at a previous batch of book releases that I was really looking forward to and I tell you if I have read them and if so, what did I think about them. Today I'm going to be doing a batch from 2019. These are July, August, and September releases from that year that I was really looking forward to. It also happens to be a batch of books that I have read everything except for one book which I DNF'd, so I definitely have thoughts to share. I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit short because there are definitely a couple of things on this list that, because I read them so long ago and they didn't make a huge impression on me, I don't have a lot of thoughts to waffle on about. I will probably still ramble a bit though, but anyway, let's get into it. The first book in this batch is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar, and Max Gladstone. I was really looking forward to this one, and I don't want to say it was a disappointment. I feel like in retrospect it ended up being something different from what I thought I was going to get. In essence, I think this is a perfect example of style over substance. I wanted a science fiction time war tale with a romance aspect, and I thought it was going to just have beautiful writing because I've read things by both of these authors that I loved, and the idea that they're collaborating just fills me with joy. And then I read this and was like, I think the prose is kind of purple and I don't really get the story and I don't really understand who the characters are. It was very abstract. I may be in a minority and not really loving this one though, because it's been very critically acclaimed. It won a Nebula Award, I think it also won a Hugo Award. Yeah, people love this one, and I just thought it was all right. I will definitely read more by both El-Mohtar and Gladstone in the future, but I still don't quite know what is up with this one. Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I loved this book. This is a fantasy novel that takes place in I think 1920s or 1930s Mexico, and it follows a young woman named Cassiopeia who accidentally releases a Mayan god of death and then has to go on a quest with him to help him obtain his throne in the underworld again. There's also a bit of a romance story in there as well. I loved all of this. One of the reasons that I love this book is particularly because of the final decisions made in it and kind of how the romance part was wrapped up. I can't talk about it because that would be major spoilers, but suffice it to say that I just loved the story, I loved the characters, and I really enjoyed kind of Cassiopeia's practicality and just some of the decisions that she made for herself. I thought it was wonderful. This is also pretty much the book that solidified for me that I was going to enjoy pretty much anything that Silvia Moreno-Garcia writes, so all of her books are now auto-buys for me. Reticence by Gail Carriger. This is the fourth and final book in the Custard Protocol series. This series follows basically the children of the main characters in Carriger's Parasol Protectorate series. The main character is Prudence. She's the daughter of Alexia Terabati, and the series begins by focusing on Prudence. I didn't love Prudence, but the third and fourth books focus more on her friends, and Reticence is Percy's book. I love him. He is my favorite character in the series, and I really enjoy just continual, ridiculous, wacky adventures with, of course, a romance plot in there. Percy gets the girl that he wants. I enjoyed it. I do not think that the Custard Protocol series is Gail Carriger's best work. I actually think that in recent years, the stuff she's really been shining in has been her like self-published novellas and such. The Custard Protocol series is fine, but with the exception of the bits that focus on Percy, I don't know if I'll ever revisit them. They're fun while you're reading them though. One of those books that I don't remember that much about is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. This is kind of funny because it's literally a book about people who lose their memories on this island, which is kind of being controlled by like the memory police. I think it's because this book was incredibly atmospheric and I enjoyed the way that it felt, but I did not think that there were enough satisfying answers to what was going on. And where the book ended, I remember thinking like, oh, that's it? Okay. Perhaps this book sits more on the literary end of the speculative spectrum, and if you approach it as literary fiction rather than as science fiction with real like logic and explanations, it might hit better. I did like it. I did enjoy reading it, and I would probably read more by Yoko Ogawa in the future. But yeah, it's kind of funny I don't remember a lot about this one. Now for some nonfiction. The next one on my list is the Modern Masters of Science Fiction work on Joanna Russ, written by Gwyneth Jones. This is a series put out by the University of Illinois Press, which focuses on kind of critical academic analysis of science fiction writers' bodies of work. I don't read all of these, I just pick the ones where I know that I'm actually interested in an in-depth exploration of a writer's entire catalog. And Joanna Russ is one of those really interesting writers that someday I would like to read as much as I possibly can of her, at least very famous, influential works. I haven't gotten very far yet, but this was a really good deep dive into pretty much everything that Joanna Russ wrote. Not just the short stories, not just the novels and the novellas, but also her critical work. She was a book reviewer for, I think, the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, and so her column in that magazine is also talked about. I really enjoy Russ as a critic. The way that she wrote, basically in her nonfiction and her essays and stuff, was just, she had a way with words and she wasn't afraid to actually be critical. I loved that. The only thing that this book didn't really deliver that I kind of expected was more of a look at the intersection between Russ's personal life and what was happening in her life and what she was writing. For example, I know that she kept up a prolific correspondence with a number of people in the SFF field, and I don't recall that being talked about much in this. I'm gonna guess that it might be for more privacy reasons, but I did sometimes wish that I knew a bit more about what was actually going on with her as a person while she was writing some of these things. But otherwise, very informative, but not for everybody. It's definitely academic. Next are some books that I may have unpopular opinions on. The first is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. Okay, maybe not so much I have an unpopular opinion, more I think that there are two major camps of people who read this book. There are people who read it and love it and think it's this really lovely science fiction tale and they're cool with it. And then there are people like me who think it's all right until you get to the end and then you just really disagree with the decision at the end. Yeah. I really like the idea of this story, which it follows a group of people on this exploratory mission to another solar system where they spend a number of years living on the planets. They modify their bodies so that they're better suited to their environments. I really loved this idea and I was really into it until the end when they make this particular decision. And I am still very hung up on the fact that if I were in these characters' shoes, I would not have made the decision that they did. I thought it felt a little bit like a cop-out to me, which is maybe a bit harsh, but whatever. I can definitely see myself rereading this in the future and maybe looking at it from a different angle though. I think there's a lot you could actually pull out of this particular story. Then there's the one DNF on this list, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. This may have been the single most hyped release of 2019, at least in my circle of the internets. And I was so looking forward to it. I knew people who had gotten ARCs, had read it before it came out and loved it. And I could not get past the first 100 pages. Initially, I thought that it was me, that I was just not in the right mood to deal with the characters in the story. And I said, oh, I'll come back to it at some point. I will restart it when I'm in a better mood and I will enjoy it then. And I never have. I just can't. I felt like the characters in the story, I disliked them all and I felt like they treated each other terribly. And I found it really upsetting, kind of a stressful, anxiety-inducing upsetting where you're like, why can't they just, communicate like real people and stop digging at each other and just pissing each other off? So yes, as much as I wanted to read this back in the day, I think ultimately it turned out to be one that just didn't have the right characters or even writing style for me, and I haven't really been tempted by what I've heard about the other books in the series either, so I'm gonna leave this one alone. And then we're gonna end on a high note with two really beautiful books. I have one of them here, Women in Art, 50 Fearless Creatives Who Inspired the World, written and illustrated by Rachel Ignotofsky. This is the third and I think final in her kind of Women in History series. The two previous ones were Women in Science and Women in Sports. They were both wonderful, delightful. Women in Art, this is a gorgeous and extremely inspirational book. It made me so happy while I was reading it, and all of the superlatives, guys. So yes, this is 50 little biographies of just a variety of women who were artists and creatives in a number of fields, not just like painters or whatever. I'm talking about art everywhere, sculpting, textile arts, almost more like industrial stuff as well. It was incredible. I learned a lot from this. I've never known that much about art. I found myself just Googling all of these women and looking at like pictures of the actual pieces of artwork that are named. They're actually little thumbnails that Ignotofsky draws of some of the works, and it was fun to look at those and then look at the real ones. So it's so beautiful, very, very much worth reading. Ignotofsky's books are written for a younger audience, but I think they can be enjoyed by pretty much everybody. The same can probably be said of this last one, The Tea Dragon Festival by Kay O'Neill. This is the second in this series in this kind of like secondary fantasy world where of course there are tea dragons. They are so cute. This one focuses on a young character who is non-binary. If I remember correctly, they use they, their, them pronouns. I think they're the one who is also deaf, so there's a lot of sign language in this as well, which I thought was wonderful. I don't think I've ever read another like comic or graphic novel or picture book that had that much sign language on the page. And it made me feel warm and fuzzy and cozy inside, and that's really what I want from this. I think there's a lot of diversity and inclusion and representation in Kay O'Neill's books, and I really appreciate that. So it was lovely. The third and final book in the series still hasn't come out. In fact, I think it was delayed until June of this year of 2021. And O'Neill has, since the Tea Dragon Festival came out, they have changed their name and their pronouns. So I'm assuming that the series end has been delayed because of like pandemic times and all of that, but I'm looking forward to the final installment. And that is it for this batch. It was a pretty good one, and I am a little bit closer to being caught up on my usual schedule with revisiting these book releases. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you've also read any of these. What were your thoughts on them? Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.